Hey, this is Jon Leon Guerrero. Our guest today is Andrea Vitz. Now, before I tell you about Andrea, let me tell you about our friend and occasional co-host of this podcast, Pete Koch. He is, of course, an actor, but he played 5 seasons in the NFL as a DE. Now he's an inspiration for fitness and a 57-year-old specimen of strength. Now, neither Pete Turner nor I are at peak physical health right now, and Pete Koch doesn't hesitate to remind anyone with nothing more than his presence that we could all use more exercise. So thank you, Pete, for being a walking kick in the ass for anyone who needs to spend more time at the weight pile than at the donut pile. Now back to Andrea. Several years ago, she suffered a terrible injury that debilitated her left side. She decided that a life mired in atrophy was not for her, and sought the help of a strength coach. Solid progress was sprinkled with obstacles and setbacks, but they were no match for her dogged determination, and within a few short years, not only did she overcome her injury, but she became an elite power lifter in the process. She now heals others, to include myself, my wife, and many of my friends, by attacking the attitude, opening the door for reinvention, and being an example of the power to welcome drastic correction and control of your life. She and her husband Ted own and operate Diablo Barbell, where they create elite athletes and physical transformations out of people of all ages, shapes, and sizes, and where they've cultivated a community of supporters of transformation who all share freely from their own ongoing journeys of improvement. Andrea has been treating me with chiropractic care for several months, and we recorded the episode you're about to hear a couple of weeks ago. Since then, I've started training at Diablo Barbell, and I won't say it's transformed me. I'll say I've transformed me, and I've found an amazing toolbox. So I encourage all of you to go out and find it, whatever it is for you. And in the meantime, joining me to talk about her upcoming book, The You You've Never Met. Here's my friend, my coach, Andrea Vitz.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
Lorenzo Lamas.
This is James Altucher.
This is Nathan East.
This is Sebastian
Hi,
Younger.
this is Juan Escobedo.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Tito Ortiz.
This is Andy Summers.
Hi, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Mick Gillette.
Hey, this is Jon Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Andrea Vitz, and you're listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with Jon Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yes, indeed. Andrea Vitz is, these are my words, not hers, a healer, a health coach, and somebody who is inspiring to the point that you want to be better at being yourself when you are around her. She treats me for my terrible back and foot and joint issues. She treats my wife. She treats several of my friends and coworkers. And she keeps us upright in so many ways. So I've sort of been bugging you to be on this show for a while.
Yes.
And I have the perfect excuse now because you've written a book.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you have a title for the book yet? It's so new, right?
Yes. It's just now in edits. It is titled The You You've Never Met.
The You You've Never Met.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to dig in and give some highlights for what a reader will experience in the book. Now, you are based in, this is officially Concord, right? Concord,
yes.
California. And if you have issues of mobility and of, I mean, how would you characterize, who needs to come and see you?
If you have a difficult time living your life in your body, there's always a solution. Mm-hmm. So joints that aren't moving correctly, I will make them move correctly.
Amen.
A lot of chronically aged joints, scar tissue, immobile muscles from prolonged sitting and compression. You know, a lot of weakness out there.
Yeah.
And especially in people who really would consider themselves strong, believe it or not, are actually quite weak in areas that are most important, you know, and myself included. You know, when I first came to Diablo Barbell, which is the gym that I now own with my husband, and we do a ton of rehab and a ton of transformations through, I became a part of this club because of a really severe injury.
All right.
Yeah. So
here's where we get started, because you are a chiropractor.
Correct.
You are such a different mechanism in the way that you treat the body, and I've seeked out and enjoyed chiropractic treatment for much of my life, and I've had several good ones. Your treatment has been so different than anybody else's and so much more dependent on me and my own habits. So a lot of chiropractors, I don't know, I don't want to generalize, but there are people out there who have chiropractic practices where you go in, you get relieved, adjusted and relieved for a short amount of time. Your focus is not that. Your focus is so far beyond that. Your focus is, we got to get you better and you got to get you better. There's an
100%.
amount of personal responsibility in the patient. And I, of course, I'm lucky to be a patient and you treat my wife as well. But there are people who don't get to be your patient.
Yeah.
And so let's start with, who doesn't get to be your patient?
People who don't take responsibility for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody comes in, they want me to manage their bodies for them.
Yeah.
I'm just not interested in that. I'm not interested in maintaining somebody. I'm interested in producing a better result from them. So if somebody came to me and they were weak and they continue having the same problems over and over again, there's a point where, you just have to send them somewhere else, because I want you to thrive. I want you to look at the parts of you that are clearly not optimally working and forcing them to change by virtue of strengthening them.
All right. That's the answer I was hoping for, because now we'll get into how you got here.
Yes. How I got here.
Yeah. How'd you get here?
Well, I was already a chiropractor and a mom, and I blew 3 discs out in my lower spine, L3, 4, and 5, and I had no use of my left calf. The nerve was completely dead. I had 9 out of 10 pain, 10 out of 10 pain going down the back of my leg. Most of the time, I felt like my left ankle was going to explode. Most of the time, just from that pressure of the nerve. I had complete atrophy of my left glute, or butt cheek, if you will.
Yeah.
And
Your whole left side.
completely numb in my inner thigh, saddle anesthesia, all things that I really knew as a doctor I should have probably received surgery to just simply correct the problem. But, I'm not the kind of person who is completely adverse to surgery. I think there's a time and a place. And if I were anyone else, I would have said, get the surgery. Because it wouldn't make sense in a lot of lives to try to get through that on your own. Right?
Yeah.
You got to go to work. You got a family. I personally didn't have it in me to risk getting on the surgery table. I just didn't have that in me. I was afraid, what if I go in and have this easily fixed and I die on the table? Some freak accident. What if I become paralyzed? It just wasn't worth it to me. So I thought there has to be a way, if the body can heal itself. And it often does. I mean, your hair is constantly growing. Your nails are constantly growing. You cut your arm, it heals. You're not trying to heal that.
Yeah.
What is that? What's healing you, right? So I knew the power that made the body heals the body. I'm a chiropractor. That's kind of a very well-known verse that we all often repeat. And I wanted to see if I could do it. And so I was referred. Yes.
I'm going to pick right back up where you left right there. But it's not that you have an aversion to the concept of surgery. It's that you had an aversion to that specific surgery for you at that time.
Yes.
And why do you think that there was such an aversion? Because it would have been an easy fix, and am I generalizing? I'm painting with a really broad brush there. But here you are, debilitated on an entire side of your body practically.
Yes.
And you still do not choose a surgical solution. It doesn't seem like, you say, I don't want to die on the table, but it doesn't seem like that comes from a place of fear.
That was, I think, my personality trying to give me a reason that would be understandable to other people as to why I wasn't doing it. But I think in the deepest core of me, it was every trauma leads you to a great lesson. And every lesson that you obtain from that trauma will make you very valuable in other people's lives. And so by me not taking the easy way out, so to speak, and forcing my body through this process of recovery, so to speak, and really relying on it to do its job. And I knew that it would. I knew
there was a mission there.
Absolutely. And if I hadn't had that injury, I would not be the doctor I am today. I would not be nearly as helpful, and I wouldn't be nearly as empathetic and compassionate. And I just would lack this incredible knowledge base that I now have by virtue of living it, right?
Yeah, you can't avoid the knowledge.
You can't avoid the knowledge.
It's one thing to take the lessons
Yes.
and be a part of the curriculum. But when you have to, it's as if an astronaut was thrust into space.
Right.
And you can do all the astronaut educational things, but then you can be thrust into space.
Exactly.
And there you are, and you have to figure out a lot of things. And then there is not just the, here's what happens under these conditions. It's, oh no, I know those conditions.
Yeah.
I know the feeling of those conditions. I know the emotional baggage that comes with those conditions. And I think your connection to the empathy has a lot to do with what makes you different. Now let's go back to where we left off, which was you were referred.
Yes, I was referred to Diablo Barbell. Ted O'Neill was there, and he was known as the greatest strength coach in California, West Coast. And he was, by virtue of the Diablo Barbell powerlifting team, we had the strongest powerlifting team for 17 years in the state. And, I just, of course, was like, you know what, I'll try it. I'll try anything. And I met with him, and he said, I think you need to get surgery. And he talked to 2 other doctors who said, yeah, you should get surgery. Other chiropractors who were pretty anti-surgery both thought that, and looked at the MRI and said, I'm surprised she's even walking. And that all just led me further towards my answer of no, because I felt like there was something there. And I think I knew that he also needed this. Like, I could feel like there was something that we were going to create together. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I said, look, I think we can do this together. I think that we can overcome
You
this.
talked him into training you back to
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
He knew that he could do it, but I don't think he knew that the subject he had would be willing to do it.
Right, yes.
I think you can overcome anything by strengthening it. Emotional, spiritual, physical, mental, anything. If you strengthen it and become a different person, that problem can no longer survive. That problem cannot exist in a different person.
Okay, we got to unpack that all by itself.
Well, that's essentially what my book is.
Let us table that for a moment, so that you can complete the story of your arrival here.
Yes.
So you and Ted sort of get a feel for the fact that you can do this, and together you sort of empower each other to take it on.
Yeah, we figured it out.
And you had to make it so that he was confident that you would endure it.
Yeah, he was the brains for sure behind it. And I think I was just the will, right? I think he's got his own will for his own life. But
this is funny because our listeners, okay, first of all, let me just say, because I know Ted, I know where you're going with that. But listeners, if you take a look at Ted, you're not going to think, if I saw this guy outside of a bar or in an alley, I would, the one glance.
You might think, I'm just going to go the other direction.
I'm going to go the other direction. He is a strength coach, and he is a strength coach who empowers, clearly.
Oh, absolutely.
And so you can't be a strength coach who empowers without obtaining some level of strength yourself. And you would look at him and think, well, this ain't going to be no easy win. So going back to the spirit of what you were feeling in your recovery and deciding to go down this road, you saw a mission. You felt a mission.
Yeah.
And so you decide to embark on this mission. What did you think your recovery time looked like? I mean, in terms of how long did it take before you were back to where you had been?
Well, that's a good question. Initially, Ted told me, if you really want to do this the way that I think you want to do this, you're going to have to get as strong as my elite powerlifters. This isn't going to be like a normal lower back rehabilitation for you. If your level of strength is not far and miles beyond the injury, then you're always going to have a disability. And so he pointed to the record board, our women's record board in Diablo Barbell. These are women, 148-pound women squatting 500 pounds. Right? I mean, this isn't like, let's just get a little stronger.
Yeah.
This is like,
ooh, I'm going to go take that Pilates class.
Exactly.
This isn't the leisurely Pilates class that you take with your next door neighbor because you like hanging out with her. Yeah. And you're really there because, why not get a little fit, and we have an excuse to drink wine afterwards.
Exactly. So it's just, there's not going to be a whole lot of getting stronger while you're laying down. You have to be all in. You have to, and anytime you rehab something that hurts, it's going to hurt.
Yep.
So psychology of injury is very important in rehabilitation because you have to know, yeah, you're going to hurt and that's okay.
Wow.
And that's okay. Keep going.
Yeah.
Because pretty soon you're going to have a pain-free morning, and then you're going to have a pain-free day, and then you're going to have a pain-free week, and then you're going to hurt again.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have another pain-free week, and then you're going to hurt again, and it's going to be this mountain. Climbing a mountain's never a straight line, right?
Yep.
You go up and down and up and down, and that is the path of change in any regard. So the same with rehabilitation. So back to him pointing to the record board, these are women that are benching 300 plus pounds, and I'm like, okay. I don't know. You have to understand, I'm not by any means a great athlete. I mean, I played softball. I was a third baseman, but that doesn't take a whole lot of athletic skill. That's like more reflex, Like I just don't want this ball to hit me in the face. I could throw it really far. I could hit a ball, but I wasn't strong. I thought I was strong, but I wasn't. When you really test it, I wasn't.
I mean, if somebody said, hey, you're going to squat 500 pounds,
God.
you would have been like...
I had no idea what that meant. I didn't even understand the concept. I knew what a leg press was.
Yeah.
I had done some, Jillian Michaels tapes back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
She's great.
She's great.
I love her.
Uh-huh.
But, I never had a bar on my back, right? Yeah. So, I, of course, didn't start with a bar on my back. I started my first day, I think I was on an inversion table at 20 degrees, and that hurt like hell. And I just kept showing up and doing the work, and
it kept hurting, and
it kept hurting, and I kept enduring it. Yeah, and then to answer your question, I thought it would be a couple of years.
Yeah,
and I thought it would be a lot. I thought it would take longer to be out of pain, and to be honest, I got out of pain pretty fast.
How fast is pretty fast?
I would say I felt pretty good in about 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah.
So you went from your left side was not functional.
Yeah, no left butt cheek.
At least I'm feeling pretty good 3 months later.
Yeah, I felt pretty good. I mean, I was able to get a bar on my back pretty quick.
How much of that was your psychology, though? Because I think we've established that you're wired a little different from everybody. I mean, you saw this mission. You recognized this mission.
Yeah.
So at some point, you knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, or you knew that there was...
there had to be.
Yeah, there was something.
Yeah.
And so how much of that do you think was, I mean, without that mindset,
all of it.
You don't do the 3 months, first of all.
Honestly, all of it. Because you can have, I think if you have the will to do something and you're connected to something that's greater than you, you'll make it happen.
Wow.
Doesn't matter what it is.
And so that probably had a lot to do with it too, was that you did recognize the mission.
Yeah.
And it became not just about your recovery of your left butt cheek.
No.
It was about this understanding the way that this worked, and that you and Ted were attacking this problem.
Right.
It was going to be so much more for so many more people out there.
Right. And to be honest, I had so many patients with failed back surgeries.
Yeah.
Right. Some of them work great. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
There's some miracles that can happen out there. And some very gifted surgeons that it just doesn't work out right.
Yeah.
The body doesn't respond well, or maybe that patient's not ready to be well. I think that's really what matters, is when you're ready to be well, and you're so ready to be well that you actually can picture that person.
Yeah.
You will just get there. You can't help but get there. And this guy, genius. I mean, he knew when to back off, my husband. He knew when to push. He knew.
Hold on. You just used the H word. We haven't sprung that on people yet.
Which one?
Let's fast forward to the fact that now
I forced him to marry me.
He was a strength coach. He got you so strong that you held him down at an altar and forced him to marry you.
God, yeah. I mean, he's just an exceptional human being. That goes without saying.
Okay.
The patience level on him is not matched. And,
really?
He would take anyone through hell and be there with them and hold their hand if they had the right attitude.
Huh.
Yeah. Just an amazing human being.
Yeah.
And I feel like together we really kind of finish each other in terms of, like, if I'm working on somebody and there's a strength element missing, he just steps right in and knows how to fix that. And by virtue of my going on the strength path, I also have that gift now where I can help other people with strength, and it's really second nature to me. I can see it instantly, like, oh, well, clearly, that muscle group doesn't move together correctly, so we have to entrain that. But he took me from not being able to stand up and sit down on my own to squatting 524 in competition 3 years later.
In 3 years, you were squatting
I was
in excess of 500 pounds.
Yes, I'm a geared multiply powerlifter, and that is hard to explain, but that's my sport. And in, I would say 2014, I got an elite total in powerlifting, which is the total of the 3 lifts, the bench press, the squat, and the deadlift. And an elite total has to be a certain number that measures along with your weight class.
Relative to your weight? Okay.
Yeah. And I got my first elite in 3 years.
And what does that mean mathematically?
Oh, God. I don't even
What
know
were
how to
those?
explain that.
Okay.
Well, let's say I was 195 pounds when I got my elite total, and I totaled 1223.
Between those 3 exercises,
Yes.
you were pushing up 1,200 pounds.
1223, correct.
1223.
Yeah.
This is what I like to do when I tell people about you. I say, and she can squat 525 pounds. And here's the punchline. I go, you know who cannot squat 525 pounds? Us. And so I love to do that because then a person gets to not only feel like, boy, am I, I'm a weakling, but the 2 of us together couldn't push that up. It's a tremendous accomplishment to come from. You can't get up out of a chair by yourself.
Yeah.
And in really such a short period, because I don't want to underplay the amount of sacrifice that had to occur in those years.
Yeah.
In those short few years, there was a concentrated amount of sacrifice.
Yes.
But we're not talking about a lifetime.
No.
We're talking about
3 years.
a very compressed
Yes.
an amount of time for a turnaround. So this is the thing I want to drive home for our listeners is that, hey, we're not talking about 30 years. We're talking about 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
And for those of you who are out there who want to get stronger, want to get better, want to fix something going on in your body, in your frame, in your mechanism, in your head,
In your life. Yeah.
there's a turnaround period that is finite.
Yeah. Well, honestly, all change happens in a second. It's just a decision. That's all. I mean, the second I made the decision to get better, I was better.
Yeah.
I mean, in the future, there was a point at which I would squat 500 pounds. And in the moment I decided to do it, theoretically, I
Right.
was already there.
You knew that it was there.
Yeah, it's just about, getting sucked to that point in time, by virtue of just staying the course and having the right support behind you. And I think that's something we do really well, not just as partners for each other, but for our people. It's just once you are a part of our life, we've got you.
Yeah.
We will support you through it. We know how scary it is. We know how much it hurts. We know how hard it is to change. And, change is uncomfortable. Change hurts in your body even.
Yep.
Your body wants to stay the same. That's kind of the whole point. It's homeostasis. It wants the same. So to ask it to change, whether in emotion or in physical or mental, it's going to kick back. It's going to say, I disagree.
Especially outlook when it comes to
Absolutely.
outlook.
Yeah. It'll give you something in your body or in your experience will provide the opposite of what you want to see when you decide to change. And that's kind of one of the things I talk about in my book. It's magic, like Einstein would call it like spooky action at a distance. When something happens, right, that theoretically shouldn't happen, but it's so synced up with your process that it has to be a part of the process, right?
It insists itself
It insists
upon you.
So the same thing happens with change in the negative. I call it in my book the familiar energy crisis. You might be trying to change something about yourself and you re-enter into a familiar part of your life and it sucks you back into the old.
Wow.
Right? So it's a way of your body and your mind and your life keeping homeostasis or the status quo.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things in my life that tried to keep me from getting stronger. And one of those things is pain. Symptom. I did this, it hurt more. Okay. Does that mean we don't do this again? Or does that mean we just
For a
keep
lot of us, it
forcing
does.
Yeah, you force it. You have to train your body like a rabid dog. It's going to do exactly what you want it to do. In fact, your body's already doing what you've always told it to do.
Mm-hmm. You just have to change your
Yeah,
command.
you change your demand. Yeah. And you demand it enough and you love it enough and it's going to change. It will do anything you ask.
Pause for effect.
Yes.
At the time where I usually say So listeners, go to www.whatever and buy this book. I will say this. I'm talking to Andrea Vitz. She is a healer of many things, mostly your attitude and your ability to make your life better.
Yes.
And if you're lucky enough to be in the Bay Area, she is based in Concord. It's Andrea Vitz, Vitz. And for our listeners who are interested in being as strong as they want to be, you're talking about Diablo Barbell, which is your husband Ted's.
Yeah.
It's yours together,
Yeah.
but it's right next door.
Yes.
To your practice. So anybody who's in the Concord, California area, you can experience these things firsthand, and you should. And if
Yeah.
you know what's good for you, you should come test yourself.
Yeah.
It's not just come see Andrea, it's come test yourself. See what you're made of. And you might not be ready, honestly.
Yeah.
You might not be ready to take on the journey, but I promise these folks are very patient.
Oh God, just
They'll stick around for you.
No one walks through our doors a champion.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I'm a perfect example of the kind of person who walks through this door. You know, completely injured and weak and scared, looking for answers, looking for guidance, and really,
The thing
you just
was
need
you
the
were
decision.
looking.
I was looking. Yeah, I was open.
Did you know you were looking?
No, I don't think I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the same for a lot of us.
Yeah.
We don't know that we're looking.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, we don't know for a long time.
Right.
So be patient with yourselves, everybody. Everybody who's listening to this show doesn't get to come here.
That's true.
So I'm glad you wrote that book, and at some point that book's going to come out. And it is called The You You've Never Met.
Correct.
So keep an eye out for it. Of course, we'll do a web blast on the website and the email thing when it comes out so that everybody knows it's out. But we have listeners now in 125 countries.
Oh, wow.
Which means that not everybody is going to get to come see you.
Right.
But
they can always call me.
they can call you.
Yeah.
They can get you on Facebook. They
Yeah.
can.
I could give them some cheat sheets on how to speed through the process. But you know what's interesting is so many people are always, you know, blown away that my book isn't even about injury, and it's not about chiropractic, and it's, you know, it's not even about physical strength.
What would you say it's about?
My book is all about emotional sobriety, which is basically the next level of emotional intelligence. So if emotional intelligence is our ability to know what we're feeling and maybe even be able to pause in response to that feeling, emotional sobriety is that complete clarity and cleanliness of your inside. You got no lies and no old shame and no old resentment, and you clean yourself out. You tidy up so much of you that everything is just real. So all of your emotions are real. There's nothing that's preconceived, nothing, no repeated patterns, you know, like, oh, my grandmother always got angry when this happened, so I do, right?
Yeah.
That's gone. You know, so it's really it's a strength-based, exercise-based book that requires 100% commitment and self-responsibility. And it's really it's a big passion of mine. And I do a lot of life coaching with women, specifically around this. And jokingly, people call me a wife coach because because I do help women with things like jealousy and things like, you know, compulsive lying and just things that we learn as children. And we still use them as survival mechanism as adults. And it is the opposite, has the opposite effect.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's really what it's about. It's about forcing change by virtue of at your own hand, really. Just like, you know, you would if you were rehabbing an injury. It's the same.
You've said a lot of powerful things where you just drop a sentence on us, and I feel like, okay, well, I got to keep this story going, so we're going to move past this for a minute. But there are a lot of places around this conversation where I'd like to just stop and unpack this morsel of something, and we just don't have time. However, you will have time if you read the book, The You You've Never Met. You will have time if you're in the Concord, California area, and you just look up Andrea Vitz, and you look up Diablo Barbell. And I would certainly recommend that you do both of those things. You may find something. You may find something.
You will.
And that something isn't necessarily a long-term commitment to powerlifting as a competitor or whatever. but it could just be an exposure to a part of yourself that is an answer to the rest of the parts of yourself that you don't necessarily like or that you wonder why they're there. Or it's weird that you use the word sobriety, emotional sobriety, because I have mixed feelings about, there are plenty of folks who I know and love who are practicing sobriety in the traditional sense.
Correct.
Sort of the godfather of our podcast is Jay Moore, and he is, I don't know how long sober, but we certainly support his sobriety.
Yeah.
But I sort of have a love-hate relationship with that word.
Okay.
Just because I also like to be drunk.
Well, so there's a big difference between sobriety, as in I'm an alcoholic and I don't drink anymore, therefore I'm sober. And like, for example, if I am completely unaffected by something outside of me, meaning I don't need booze to feel something different.
Okay.
Because of my sickness. I don't rely on it, right? You don't go home and drink because you feel like you're going to die without it.
I see.
Right? So you are in essence sober, but you're drinking.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying is there's nothing outside of you that can change what's inside of you, nor should it need that, right? So when I think of somebody who is sober, I think of somebody who has massive clarity, who is honest, who is level-headed. Think of the definition of sober. It doesn't necessarily mean the lack of alcohol or the lack of methamphetamine, right? It's everything. Well, that's an interesting.
There's a dinosaur outside.
How does that sound?
No, there's probably, 1,000-pound piece of equipment that's getting moved around.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't understand that, but you can absolutely have a glass of wine or a bottle of wine and be sober.
And still be emotionally sober.
Yeah.
In that you retain your clarity and your judgment and your ability to exercise your own will.
Right.
And that's part of it too.
Correct. So emotional sobriety, if you look at it as if you're drinking, a 24-pack of beer because you hate your life, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. You are now belligerent drunk.
Yep.
Okay. The same thing could be said for, let's say, me. If I am hysterical and dramatic and compulsively lying and throwing a tantrum, I'm under the influence of my emotions. I am emotionally belligerent.
Yes.
I am not sober.
Gotcha.
And nothing that I do is a choice.
Have you been there, listeners? I think you have. I'm imagining certain people who I know have been there because I've been there with them.
Yes.
And I've thought, man, you are out of control.
You are not sober. So in that moment when you're talking, I don't know if you've ever had a fight with somebody who is just so, you can't even console them. They're so out of it, right? They're no longer.
Not only have I had a fight with that person, other people have had a fight with me as that person. Yeah.
Right? So that would be a version of you that you don't really like, right?
Yeah, and
so
that certainly was not emotionally sober.
No, and that's what my book is about. It's to help you become the you you've never met, that future you that is so level-headed and so complete and so whole that nothing outside of you could ever alter what's inside.
Okay. Now, for the readers of the book, the future readers of the book,
yes,
we're going to explore areas of yourself. We're going to allow you to ask yourself some questions.
Some pretty hard questions.
About your own emotional sobriety. And we're also going to have availability for this book, not only in book form, but you're going to make an audio book, right?
You know what? I am. Because you said I have to.
You must. I mean, the words are powerful, and they're powerful on the page, and there's nothing that replaces. I love books.
Yeah.
There's nothing that replaces the words on the page, but I think that this is one of those topics that can be enjoyed and digested, and hopefully enjoyed more than once and digested more and more seriously each time.
Absolutely, it has to be.
When they're received coming out of your voice.
Yeah.
So, and one of the reasons that, like I said, I've been, trying to cajole you into doing this podcast with me, but one of the reasons is because I absolutely want to nudge you toward that audiobook.
Done.
I think that it's something that we can listen to in traffic. It's something that we can hear. There's a sincerity that we can hear in your words. And there was somebody recently, one of our show's co-hosts, and a guy who I have so much admiration for, and I just love him. He's just such a great dude, is Scott Husing. And he was a major in the Marines and a decorated American hero and personal hero of mine. Great guy. He did not read his own book. His audiobook was read by somebody else.
Okay, so I have a very similar thing. One of my favorite teacher of all time didn't read his own book either. And I know part of that could be that they're just so busy.
Yeah.
They really don't have that extra time. Their heart and their passion is on the road teaching other people, so just to read the book, someone else can do it, right?
Yeah, it takes time.
But there is, and I'm guarantee it does, but there is something to hearing that sincerity, like you said, that voice, the voice that wrote the book, reading it, because if my friend read my book, it's not maybe the inflection I would use.
Yeah, it's different
right?
in your own head.
Exactly, yeah. Where there may be almost a different message received.
Right?
Yeah.
One of those different messages might just be wow, she really meant that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean
She's
it.
not
I
kidding.
mean a lot of it.
Yeah.
My editor told me that when she read through the first time, she said it's a very frank and direct book, but it's really loving. And that's really what I wanted, because I want it to be an invitation, not a demand or a shaming thing. I want you to think about some areas that you can be better, and not like good, bad, right, wrong, but for yourself. Like, where do you not want to get stuck anymore? Whether it be in your romantic relationships, your relationships with your children, your relationships at work, your relationship with your body. Where could you do better for yourself? And the things that you think of as problems are really, really easily overcome when you become something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Very powerful. Can I get very personal with you? Will you diagnose me?
I will.
What's wrong with me?
There's nothing wrong with you.
Okay. All right.
Well, you would be the one to answer that question, because only you live in there, right?
Yeah.
You have your experiences. You've looked through those eyes since you were a little baby. You're the only one.
Okay.
And so what are the thoughts you think? What are the lies that you've told? What are these, what are the resentments that you have? A lot of my work is really kind of, the foundation of it is really 12-step. I love the 12 steps. I think everybody in the world would benefit from it.
Yeah.
It's the easiest, I shouldn't say easiest. It's the simplest way to get a great look at yourself from the balcony, so to speak, right? It's if you're ready to get honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's life-changing. You can always tell the person who's really done the work. You always can.
Wow.
Because you're just going to be next to them and just know, like, oh, I can trust this person. Yeah, they've been to war and back, kind of a thing, right?
I'm trying to be willing to put myself out there.
Oh yeah.
So this is why I'm asking you what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Because
Well, let's talk about that, because I would love to help you figure this out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I told you this is going to be an hour. We're at about 40 minutes
Oh,
now.
we could easily do this.
So, okay.
It's what I do all the time.
Yeah. Well, I have faith that you can do it. You're pretty good at cutting to the chase, that's for sure.
Right.
I sort of want to tell the story of how I met you, because there's something in that as well. But before we do that, well, I can do that very briefly. I was with my friend David. We were driving around doing stuff, and he suddenly could not walk. I mean, he had thrown his back out. He's a very physical guy. He was working out a lot at the time, and I don't know what he did to himself, but for whatever reason, he was in, and, guys our age, I should say people our age, run into these situations all the time. Oh, I just threw my back out.
Right.
I can't walk. And, not to belittle that situation. He couldn't walk. He was in trouble. He was hurting bad. Call Andrea. I need to call Andrea. I need to get to Andrea. Okay.
Who is this Andrea?
Yeah. Great. Oh, Andrea is the chiropractor. Okay. Okay. Hey, I'm with you, man. You don't have to drop me off anywhere. We can go straight there. Whatever you need. So we get here. What I did not realize I was walking into was an office that is a single room.
Yes.
You have your treatment takes place in this room. Your billing takes place in this room. Your social media takes place in this room. Your thinking and writing it's a single room. Everything happens right here.
Yeah.
My friend needs treatment. You put him on this contraption I've never seen before. And like I said, I've had chiropractic treatment for years. I've never seen this contraption.
Flexion distraction table, in case you wonder.
Flexion distraction table. He's on it face down. I'm sitting in the room going, okay. You know that feeling that you get when you accidentally walk into a bathroom and somebody's in there and you go, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not supposed to be here.
I'm sorry. My bad. I'm sitting here the whole time like, he's got his butt up in the air on this contraption and you're about to adjust him and do I avert my gaze?
I don't remember his butt being in the air, but
no, it probably wasn't. But my thought is, do I avert my gaze or I am fascinated by what is about to happen here because of his absolute faith that you're going to make him walk again. And I was like, no, I'm not averting my gaze. I'm going to see what the hell is going on here. And you did things that made me wonder about your intuition because you would grab a part of his body and just make a subtle motion and go, what's going on with your insert completely other part of his body?
Yeah.
And you would read something from somewhere else.
Yes.
And each time you did that, he would respond with, oh my God, that's been bothering me all week.
Yeah.
Or something.
Well, because there's a misconception that we're a component of several different parts and we're whole. We're one thing.
Yeah.
So to say my back is out is, if you think about it, pretty silly because your back is not separate from anything else.
Right.
Just like you and I are not separate, really.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, boy, is your back connected to everything else.
Absolutely.
So also, and there was a great conclusion to our visit in that you made him feel better. You gave him some relief.
Yeah.
He knew that there was some work that he had to do, but we were able to walk out of there.
Yes.
But the other thing that happened was your daughter was here.
Oh, yes.
So I also got to witness that. And again, folks, we're in one room. We're in this room right now.
Yeah.
You just treated me, and now we're here doing this.
Yes.
And so your daughter would come in and say, Mom, I just whatever. And I just witnessed an interaction between a mother and a daughter that was beautiful and sincere and loving and all of the things. And when I left here, I thought, I don't know who that person is, but who is this person? How does she? And by the way, she's clearly no pushover. And David said, oh, no, not only is she not a pushover, she could put 500 pounds up off of her shoulders. And I thought, what's going on here? What is happening in this place? So,
well, you guys make me sound like Wonder Woman.
it was a fun way to meet a person.
That's
and
great.
A fun way to get a sense of a person very, very quickly. I mean, you are completely out there.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, since you're
maybe
completely
clarify
out there,
that completely out there.
She is. She's out. She's cuckoo. No. You're completely out there in that there is no, I mean, you speak of honesty with yourself.
It's important. Yes, it's all
and
of it.
So this is why I am saying, here I am. I'm going to say, let's figure out what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Because, I got stuff wrong with me. I got, sure, I've probably been telling myself some lies. I don't mean to be cavalier about that, or I'm not in denial about it.
Of course.
I'm just curious about what they are because they are, first of all, I do think I'm fairly healthy. And I do think that my admission that I'm not completely right is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Now, what is wrong with the rest of me? Like, what are you going to have me fix? What do you have me fix?
That's a long conversation. I don't know enough about what you're struggling with.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Are we talking about your body?
Mostly.
Yeah. Okay.
Mostly, but I know it's not rooted there.
It's not. No.
So,
your body tells the story of your life.
Okay.
One of my favorite teachers says that your body embodies your thoughts and your emotions. It's an embodiment of it.
I see.
So what you feel in your body is a combination of your thoughts and your emotions and all of those things and your past. And so I think really it comes down to looking at your life and any areas of resistance, right? Anything from your past that you still feel, shame or unsupported, resentment, right?
Yeah.
Really dig deep for those things. Because I always say, if you can lie to other people, you're going to have very unhealthy relationships. But if you can lie to yourself, you're in trouble.
Okay. I'm in trouble.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is why I'm doing this, because I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know where exactly I'm in trouble. Okay. But I mean, let's say, there are a lot of things that are out of whack about me. I weigh too much.
Okay.
Now.
And that's also very subjective.
I suppose that the lie that I tell myself is, I just love good food. And I do. I love to congregate around good food. I love to appreciate. And by good food, sometimes I mean really, really bad food.
Good tasting
I can tell you where to get good tasting, terrible for you food in most every city in the United States.
Yes.
I mean, I have people who just are traveling somewhere and go, hey, I am in Memphis. What do I do in Memphis? Oh, the easy answer to that is Corky's.
So
get the dry rub ribs. Oh, you're in Round Rock, Texas? There is a Salt Lick. Go there. Get the smoked, it's just.
So think about where that comes from.
Where does that come from?
When was it your childhood?
Probably.
Did your family really, like you say, commune around food?
Yeah.
So that's a form of love for you.
That's true.
Okay. So that's easy.
Okay.
Because if you can change your relationship or your emotion around that, all you have to do is keep the same feeling and change the ingredients.
Okay. And so one of those things is, so here's where, I make light of it. Because the first thing that popped into my head was, well, I'm not going to change my relationship with barbecue sauce.
No, of course, but that's funny.
Yeah, right. I mean, I use levity for that reason. I know that I'm deflecting. I know that I'm not addressing an issue. But I really do love barbecue sauce.
And that's fine.
But I'm doing that to be funny because it's like I want to make light of the fact that I am really wedded to this idea that my happiness exists.
But we talked earlier
in
about
a smoky barbecue.
Yeah, and we talked earlier about knowledge.
Uh-huh.
If you have knowledge, then you can change anything.
Okay.
So all you would have to do is find out the foods that you like eating that aren't going to have an unhealthy impact on your body.
Okay.
To the same degree that you do now. Like most things you can eat in the world, you can eat anything and be healthy.
Okay.
It's your relationship to that matters.
Right.
Right?
And my gluttonous attitude toward.
Yeah. And if you're whole and you're not eating it because you're trying to fill something, you're probably not going to gain weight.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Our sicknesses are always expressed in that way. Right?
Wow. Okay.
And here's the problem is that if there is something you're trying to fill with food, and that is a sickness for you or just a compensation, it's visible. Whereas if I was drinking by myself at night, you might not notice it.
Yeah.
Right? But it's the same sickness. And that's why what my book talks about, it's a very universal addiction or anything, behavioral, emotional, food, sex, compulsive lying, alcoholism, it's all the same sickness with different symptoms.
I hate to say this, and again, I'm not deflecting, but I do have friends who are practicing their sobriety, and then I notice in their behaviors, it's like, okay, I have plenty of, I'm encouraging and all that. I'm glad you're not drinking, but this is still not sober behavior.
Yeah.
You're still being unreliable or the other things that we associate with non-sobriety.
They haven't been thorough in their work.
I see.
To sobriety, yes.
Okay.
They're dry.
Okay.
Right? So stopping the behavior.
Just dry, not sober.
Yes.
Okay.
Stopping the behavior does not make you sober.
Uh-huh.
Just like saying sorry does not change the fact that you'll just do it again later. Right?
Oh.
Right.
Wow.
True amends or mending a situation is a sustained, obvious change over a period of time. So like if I'm working with somebody and their amends is that they have to go tell their husband that they've been lying to them for the last 5 years, you better believe that they're going to be honest forever. That's the only time that amends makes sense. You can't just say, hey, I'm sorry, I've been lying to you, and then continue the same thing, right? So that's the difference. Wow. If somebody just, let's say there's a wife who comes home and she's like, well, I'll just tell one lie. There's a vast difference between that and telling 15 lies. But is there really? Right?
Yeah, right.
So that's the same thing with
incomplete.
these people. The work is incomplete. If you're not totally changed, you haven't done it.
Yeah.
You'll get to a point, you should in fact get to a point, if you really want to look at this, you'll get to a point where the food won't matter in the same way to you. You're not going to be thinking about food the same way. And you're not going to be thinking about exercise the same way. You'll just naturally become somebody different. And when you become somebody different, you do different things. Okay? One of my favorite authors talks about be, do, have. It's you become the person. And you naturally would do those things and have what that person has. But you don't do the things to become that person.
Yeah.
You just become him.
Yeah.
So who do you want to become? That is really the answer. Do you want to become a person who doesn't have the same relationship with food?
Okay. I'm going to dig into that. I'm going to dig into that thought because here's the thing. I do love that part of my identity.
Absolutely.
I love that you can ask me where to get, like what is in San Antonio? Cream corn.
You'll always have that knowledge though.
Right.
You've put in the time.
Okay.
You don't have to keep doing it. Or you just keep doing it and that there's special times and places that you do it as long as it's not coming from a place of lack.
Aha.
Now, if I go home and I have 2 bottles of wine in my head.
Right.
Because I've had a really bad day versus if I go home and have just a, glass of wine just because I feel like having it with dinner. Totally different. When you do it from a place of wholeness and joy, it's different than, man, I got to go home and shove this in my face because I feel so empty.
You can still have that glass of wine. You can still appreciate the quality of that glass of wine. You can still appreciate the craftsmanship of the insert your vice here, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That is.
If you're hurting yourself or you're hurting other people, or if you're coming from a place of lack, then that is a sickness.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody, there's a book coming out. It's called The You You've Never Met. You should read it. I'm going to read it. I don't know if you should read it. That's up to you, everybody. However, I am going to read it. I am here with my friend Andrea Vitz. She is amazing. If you're in the Bay Area, she's based in Concord. Andrea Vitz, she's a chiropractor. She will treat your body and treat you and allow you to treat your body. And that's probably the main thing.
Yeah.
That's really what I find most valuable about you is that you make it not about you. It's not about coming to see you. It's about the fixing, and the coming to see you involves a look at yourself every single time.
I think that every healer should forget that they're even in the room.
Yeah. Well, and it's not to say that there isn't tremendous temporary relief in getting treatment and the things that sometimes you just gotta, man, I really gotta loosen up and this thing's bothering me and I need the relief of today's treatment, but it's always part of a bigger, grander mission.
Big change doesn't happen with little things.
Yeah. It does not happen with little things.
No. Big change happens when you're all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And repeating it, just tearing away at the old self. It's really the only way to become new. You can't do it with kittens. That's what I always say. I wish I could bring a whole pile of kittens and put them on your lap and say, okay, you're better now.
Yeah.
But it's not. You got to take responsibility for your body and your mind and your thoughts and your emotions and your life. And when you do that, no one else has control of it.
Well, if you come see her, everybody, you can expect that she's going to ask a lot of you.
Yeah.
She's going to force you to ask a lot of yourself. She's going to force you to ask questions of yourself that require a degree of candor you're probably not used to, and in some cases not prepared for.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's next for you? What do you see as you continue? Because you're not a competitive power lifter anymore.
I'm not. No, I do still train.
Yeah.
I love coaching. Love it. I'm still a part of the team, powerlifting team, but I don't compete. What is next for me? I'm going to always be a doctor of chiropractic. I love coaching people, emotional sobriety coaching. I love writing, apparently. Now I guess I'm author. I want to do an online course. I'm working on that. And I'm going to be reading my book on an audiobook soon.
Awesome.
Because Jon said I have to.
That's terrific. Yes.
That's what's next for me.
Okay.
And hopefully doing another one of these with you.
You will do plenty of these with me. You just don't realize it yet because there's a podcaster in you've never met. The book, I'm sure, is going to be the first in a series.
Yes.
Because your exploration never stops.
No, I feel like, a lot of times. So I don't know if you've heard of Wayne Dyer.
Yeah,
Probably
of course.
have,
Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Dr. Wayne Dyer, just an angel, right? So this man was so influential in my life, but he used to say that he didn't write any of his books. They just wrote through him. And that's how I feel like this book was. I feel like a lot of it would just come to me while I was driving in my car based on experiences I'd had with clients and experiences I'd had in my own, my own sobering up, if you will. And it kept coming and it kept coming. And I didn't have the kind of authorship, if that's even a word, where you sit down, you write an hour a day or you're diligent. I wrote 16 hours this day and then I didn't write for 3 months. And then I wrote 16 hours that day and I didn't write for a month. And then I wrote 4 hours this day. It was always just like a flood.
Yeah.
Right? I never numbered a page. I didn't have an outline. And it somehow turned into this really, really good collection of lessons and teachings. And it's really prerequisite teachings. It's a self-help book, I guess you could call it. But it's really a self-work book because you're supposed to work. You can't just read a book and get better. It's a self-help book, but it's a first one. It's a preliminary. It's a prerequisite. It's so you can clear yourself of all the BS, all the things that block you so that you can hear your real advanced teachers, the master teachers. I mean, there's doctors and teachers that I now absolutely love and learn from. Like they're speaking my language. I couldn't hear them before. I read them before.
Yeah.
Or I saw their name before, but I never clicked on it. I wasn't there. I wasn't ready, like you say. Right? But when I became somebody new, that version of me was all about it and understood it completely. And it took me to the next level and the next level. So you have to unroot yourself sometimes. Stop doing the same and the same. Because if you do the same, you're going to end up the same. So if you don't like it as is, do something different. Right?
Do something different. Be somebody different.
Be somebody different. And
choose
that takes
the
a
somebody.
lot. It takes work.
Terrific.
Yeah. And I will support anyone who wants in that quest. That's my favorite thing to do. That's a dream of mine, is to have just a whole thousands of people that I can help do that. Just that.
I want that dream for you.
Thank
and
you.
I don't just, you know what? That's not accurate. I don't necessarily want that dream for you because I know you're going to make it happen. I want that dream for the rest of us. I want that
really
dream
sweet.
for the folks who need the impact, who need the encouragement,
Yeah.
who need the patience, who need their own exploration. And you are a very special person, and I love you.
I love you. Thank you so much for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, author, speaker,
Maybe.
healer,
I'm speaking now.
Andrea Vitz. Thanks.
Thank you.
That wasn't so bad, huh?
Not so bad.
All right.